Nobody warned you about this. Nobody told you that the month you thought was just another month on the calendar would carry the weight of an entire generation's future. And the scariest part? Most people are still scrolling, still distracted, still completely unaware of what is quietly unfolding right now. Let me take you back to just a few months ago. The world was already shaking under the pressure of tariffs, inflation, and geopolitical tensions that had been building for years. People thought things were settling down. Economists were talking about recovery. Investors were breathing again. And then February 28th, 2026 happened. And everything changed in ways nobody was truly ready for. The United States and Israel launched a full military operation against Iran. And what followed wasn't just a regional conflict. What followed was a domino effect that is still falling, and the full weight of it is landing right here, right now, in May 2026. Let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz first, because this is where everything begins. That narrow strip of water between Iran and Oman. About 1/5 of the entire world's oil trade flows through it every single day. Iran militarized that strait almost immediately after the war started. The International Energy Agency didn't mince words. They called this the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. The largest in history. And yet most people don't even know what that means for them personally. Here's what it means. When oil can't move freely, everything that depends on oil stops moving freely too. Fuel prices spiked, shipping costs went through the roof, and every single product that needed to be transported anywhere, food, medicine, electronics, clothing, started getting more expensive. You've been feeling it at the pump. You've been feeling it at the grocery store. And here's the terrifying truth about economics that nobody talks about enough. You haven't even felt the worst of it yet. Economists will tell you that supply shocks don't hit your wallet immediately. Remember COVID in 2020? The supply chains broke in March. But inflation didn't truly arrive until April 2021, a full year later. We are now just a few months into this crisis. The real price increases, the real economic pain is still coming. And May is the month where the pressure is starting to crack through in ways that can no longer be ignored. The consumer price index hit 3.3% in March on an annual basis. That's the highest level since May 2024, and that was before the full impact of the war really rippled through. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Index of the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge, could hit 4% by the end of this year. That is double the Federal Reserve's target rate. Think about what that means for interest rates, for your mortgage, for your credit card debt, for your car loan. The Fed cannot cut rates right now. Every working person in America and Europe is sitting in a financial vice that is slowly getting tighter. And then you layer in the tariffs. The Trump administration's trade policies were already straining the system before a single bullet was fired in the Iran war. The so-called Liberation Day tariffs from last year were already pushing prices up, disrupting supply chains, and forcing companies to rethink every single trade relationship they had built over decades. Then, the Supreme Court struck down those tariffs, but now there's talk of new ones coming as early as July. Markets don't like uncertainty. Businesses don't invest when they can't see 6 months into the future. And when businesses don't invest, regular people stop getting hired. Meta is cutting jobs. Microsoft is cutting jobs. These aren't small companies making small adjustments. These are trillion-dollar institutions telling you something about where the economy is actually heading. AI is accelerating this process in ways that would have seemed like science fiction just 5 years ago. The automation wave isn't coming. It's already here. And May 2026 is the month where you start seeing it show up in unemployment numbers in ways that can't be explained away. Let's talk about Europe for a moment, because what's happening there is a preview of what could hit everywhere else. European gas storage levels going into this winter were already dangerously low, sitting at around 30% capacity. The Dutch gas benchmark nearly doubled in price. The European Central Bank postponed the rate cuts it had planned. Germany's growth forecast for 2026 has been slashed. Economists are now warning, openly and directly, that energy-dependent economies in Europe could slide into technical recession before the year is out. Chemical manufacturers in the UK and the EU are already slapping surcharges of up to 30% onto their products. Steelmakers are doing the same. And if this goes on long enough, there's a very real risk of what experts are calling permanent deindustrialization in some sectors, meaning those jobs never come back. Now here's what that has to do with you, no matter where you are in the world. In a globalized economy, when Europe starts contracting, when American consumers start, there is no country on earth that gets to sit this one out. The Philippines already declared a state of emergency over fuel shortages. Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Vietnam, countries all over the developing world are facing severe fuel shortages that are hitting their most vulnerable populations the hardest. And in the middle of all of this, there's the food crisis that no one is talking about loudly enough. Fertilizer shipments out of the Persian Gulf have been disrupted. Governments around the world are rushing to secure crop nutrients before the spring planting season. Because if those nutrients don't reach farmers in time, the harvest suffers. And when the harvest suffers, food prices climb everywhere. A food economist at Michigan State University said it plainly. It can take the better part of 6 months or even longer to feel the full impact of a supply shock in food prices. We are in that waiting period right now. May is the month where the clock is still running. Here's a story that brings all of this down to a single human level. A man in his late 40s, let's call him Will, used to work in biotech consulting. Federal funding cutbacks and economic uncertainty dried up his work. He's now driving for Uber to make ends meet. He has 2 kids in daycare. At the grocery store, he's switched entirely to store brands. He's cut out everything that isn't absolutely necessary. He's getting by, but he says one medical emergency, one car problem, and he would have to start pulling money out of his retirement savings. Will is not a statistic. Will is what the convergence of a war, tariffs, AI job displacement, and inflation looks like on a human being's life. And there are millions of people sitting in the exact same place he is right now. But this isn't just a story of crisis. This is also a story of transformation. Because in every major disruption in history, the people who came out ahead were the ones who understood what was happening, while everyone else was still in denial. The people who understood the 2008 financial crisis early didn't just survive it. Some of them built their entire financial futures on the clarity they gained from that moment. The people who saw the COVID shift coming, who moved online, who reskilled, who adapted their businesses, didn't just recover, they thrived. The question May 2026 is asking you is very simple. Are you the person who's still waiting for things to go back to normal? Or are you the person who understands that normal has been redefined and who is starting to build for the world that is actually in front of you? Because here's what the data is showing us. The countries and individuals who are going to come out of this period strongest are the ones investing in understanding AI and positioning themselves within it rather than against it. The nations building energy independence are going to have geopolitical leverage that oil-dependent nations are going to envy for the next 2 decades. The individuals who are upskilling right now, who are learning to work alongside AI rather than compete with it, are going to be the ones companies fight over when the economy stabilizes. Oil prices are still elevated, and most forecasts say they will stay above pre-war levels throughout 2026. The ceasefire that's currently in place is fragile. Iran has sent peace proposals through Pakistan to the United States, but fragile doesn't mean stable, and if the fighting resumes, if the Strait of Hormuz stays blocked through the summer, economists aren't talking about a dip anymore. They're talking about a full global recession. The IMF has already cut global growth projections to 3.1% for 2026. The Middle East and Central Asia region has seen a 2 percentage point downgrade. Multiple countries in the Gulf are projected to contract. Not slow down, contract. These are economies that were built on the assumption that oil would always flow freely, that America would always be the guarantor of the global order, that the rules that governed international trade would hold. Those assumptions are cracking in May 2026. And the geopolitical realignment happening underneath all of this is something historians are going to write about for a long time. China has mastered what analysts are calling the electric stack, the technologies that run the 21st century. EVs, batteries, AI infrastructure, drones, robotics. America still leads in the most advanced AI models. But China may win the market if it can deploy AI at the scale and speed that its energy infrastructure makes possible. The divergence between these two powers is becoming impossible to ignore, and the countries in between, the emerging markets, the developing economies, are increasingly being asked to choose sides in ways that will define their economic futures for a generation. Water is becoming a weapon. The Indus Waters Treaty between India and Pakistan has been suspended. Ethiopia's Nile Dam is operational with no binding agreement downstream. China is building the world's largest dam with no downstream treaty in place. Half of humanity already lives under water stress. And the governance frameworks that were supposed to prevent water conflicts simply don't exist in any meaningful form. This is the slow-burning fuse that almost nobody is talking about. But that is going to explode into the open before this decade is done. So where does that leave us as May 2026 unfolds? It leaves us at a genuine inflection point, the kind of moment that feels chaotic and terrifying from the inside, but that, viewed from 10 years into the future, will look like the hinge on which everything turned. If you are a content creator, a business owner, a professional, a student, your next move matters more right now than it has in years. The channels and businesses and careers that are going to win in this environment are the ones that provide clarity, real information, and genuine value to people who are confused and scared and looking for something they can actually use. That has always been the opportunity inside every crisis. May is not just another month. May is the month where the weight of decisions made in 2024 and 2025 is finally landing on the world with its full force. The tariffs are hitting. The war is hitting. The AI displacement is hitting. The food and fuel pressures are hitting. All at the same time, all in the same month. Nobody is ready for what May brings, but you're already ahead of almost everyone just by understanding it. And understanding it clearly, calmly, and completely is where every smart next move begins. The world is not falling apart. It is reorganizing. And the only question that matters is whether you are going to be part of what comes next, or whether you're going to be left sorting through the wreckage of what was. Stay sharp, stay informed, and whatever you do, do not look away.